To discuss 1 year of MAHA and RFK Jr.'s role at HHS, joining us is Dr. Ryan Cole, Senior Fellow at Independent Medical Alliance, board-certified anatomic and clinical pathologist, and we have Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute and senior columnist for the Epoch Times. So thank you both for joining us today. Now, if we're looking across the year, we've seen many changes, including to dietary guidelines, childhood immunization recommendations, getting synthetic dyes out of foods, and others. So what actions stood out to you the most, Dr. Cole?
We've seen some fundamental changes, which is fantastic. The big moneyed interests, I think, are on the ropes to a degree in the sense that they realize Americans have woken up. The regulatory capture, and that's basically the financial interest within the agencies, has been exposed. And I think when we look at those things you listed, in addition to the ability now for physicians to speak out against whether it be the mRNA or against policies within larger organizations, I think we're seeing a big sea change within free speech as well, and doctors, independent doctors, advocating for their patients. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what can be accomplished by HHS and this administration.
So Jeffrey, Dr. Cole says this is the tip of the iceberg of what can be accomplished. I want to hear from you now. What stood out to you this year? What's at the top of the list?
Well, I think Dr. Cole is right. We've got a good, solid beginning, but you also have to understand the immensity of the problems. We have a gigantic pharmaceutical cartel that had essentially captured every agency under HHS, including HHS itself, FDA, and NIH and CDC. So that's been the job number one, was just untangling all of the industry interests that had been essentially in charge of these things. These RFK and his team are kind of trying to engage in something like a hostile takeover of these agencies to return them to the interest of the people as opposed to an industry. So that's been the overarching framework, and that has impacted a whole range of areas, including, yes, child immunizations, which is an ongoing struggle that we're going to see throughout the rest of the year, struggles on that. But then also he's worked, I would say the Trump administration has worked fairly well with Congress on some much needed reforms to the health insurance system and kicking that in the right direction. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but the trajectory is in the right direction. But I want to say a few words about TrumpRx, which is kind of a prescription drug portal, which I didn't really understand it at first what was going on here. Why would the president have his own drug company run under the government's auspices to sell directly to consumers? Like, it wasn't really making sense. And so I looked at the economic model of it, and I tell you, the whole thing is strangely brilliant. By way of background, pharmaceutical prices in this country are beyond belief out of control as compared with the rest of the world. The same drug sold within the U.S. can be 10 times the price that it's sold in other countries. So Trump put out an executive order saying this is terrible. Insofar as the government has anything to do with it, we're going to be buying at the lowest international market price for these drugs, period. That's it. Well, that caused panic, and then also a real stonewalling by the industry. They didn't want to cooperate. So finally, Trump just went all the way, because he's not going to accept no for an answer, and just created his own portal. And the economic model of TrumpRx is identical to Costco. So what Costco does is say, look, we have a great, very loyal customer base. We sell a lot of product. We'll carry your product so long as you brand one of the products as a Costco product and let us sell it for cheaper right next to your product. And companies, so there's no force involved really, but the companies go along with it just because they want it done. So Trump is using the same model for prescription drugs, as far as I understand it, buying them from all over the world and generic replacements for high-priced prescription drugs, and getting prices from them based on, like, look, we don't have to be doing any business with you. Medicare doesn't have to deal with you. Maybe we'll even consider some tariffs on your country, but we've got a big market. Why don't you sell to us at a reasonable price? You can still make profits, but you're not going to make unjust profits, exploitative profits, outrageous profits, but we're going to start taking care of the consumer now. So just seemingly out of nowhere, we've got a website now where every American can just type in TrumpRx. It's easy to remember, right? So there's that. Type in the drug that you're paying ridiculous prices for, either through your insurance or out of pocket, and buy it directly from the government at sometimes a tenth the price that was being charged just a few months ago. So I don't know. This could be one of the most brilliant government programs I've ever seen. And again, to those people who say, well, no, this is nationalization of the pharmaceutical companies. This is socialism, whatever. No, it's not. These companies are charging outrageously exploitative prices based on their government patents, and they're pillaging the American consumer and letting everybody else in the world buy cheaply. Okay, so now Trump's just getting for American citizens what the rest of the world gets.
Okay, so Dr. Cole, I want to get your comments as well on TrumpRx. But before I do, I brought a clip here with me of Mark Cuban at a Senate hearing last October. Let's take a look at that clip.
And so we're excited to offer them our API so that they'll be able to download our daily prices. So when they go down, everybody benefits.
So Dr. Cole, how significant is this new prescription program for America in your view?
I think it's a step in the right direction. Independent physicians, and as a senior fellow with the Independent Medical Alliance, this is what we've been pushing for, is transparency in pricing and the ability for the patient to make the choice. Pharma wants more of a one-size-fits-all plan for patients, and we, as independents, know that each patient is unique and different. So this drives the costs downward, as Jeffrey was saying, but at the same time, it opens up the opportunity for patients to have more options. Now, this currently only applies to brand name drugs, a lot of which are going off-label and towards generics. So I like the direction this is headed. I think this will benefit many patients. It's a cash pay only plan at the moment, so people need to be cognizant of that. They have to go and get a coupon, and it basically applies to a lot of the diabetes drugs, weight loss drugs, asthma drugs, maybe about 40 medicines so far, but it's going to expand. So we need to codify this into law. The transparency, I think, is what's better than anything. When you go to a restaurant, you know what you're paying. When you go get your oil changed, you know what you're paying. This at least lets the consumer know they have a choice as to what they're paying. Is it perfect? No. But is it a wonderful step in the right direction? I do believe so.
So, Dr. Cole, what do you say to those concerns that this is federalization? How do you address that?
Well, it's, as Jeffrey said, from an economic point of view, it's basically making the price a most favored nation pricing. We've been subsidizing much of the world for many years, and we've heard complaints from many European nations that say, well, it's going to make the cost of our drugs go up. Well, I think in America, we never agreed to foot the bill for others' medicine use. It's basically economics. It's supply and demand, and we're not going to allow ourselves to be ripped off, as it were, anymore. We're going to pay what others are paying. So I think it's equalizing the playing field in a good direction for the American consumer.
So Jeffrey, can I talk to you about the topic of eating real food? Because RFK Jr. brought this up during his speech at the Heritage Foundation. In your view, how much of a difference is this going to make? And how long are we going to, how long is it going to take before we start to see the impact of this among the health of the nation?
I don't know. I can't comment on that because Dr. Cole's much better position to say something like that. But I'm thrilled about it in so many ways. For the American consumer, for the American farmer, for just American culture in general. Processed food has become the American diet, and it's sad. And to have Mike Tyson, give that great endorsement, on the Super Bowl was a brilliant thing, and this is something that food activists have been fighting for decades, and nobody has been able to do anything about it. Now we've got a big a beautiful, beautiful website. We flipped the food pyramid upside down. I think it's going to, quite frankly, save a lot of lives and improve a lot of lives. You know, I grew up at a time where the food pyramid was upside down, and I saw my friends and family get lied to about a diet, and I saw the consequences of that. It was tragic. I bore them as a little boy in public school, suddenly being forced to eat soy burgers and having my milk taken away from me, and all these terrible things, are being afraid of eggs, you know, this kind of stuff. So finally, and everybody knows this was a terrible error. So finally, we've got RFK out there doing something about it. And I hope that it helps American health and American farmers and local food, the cause of local food, and just diet in general.
Okay, Dr. Cole, can we get your professional analysis here? Fill in the blanks for us on how much difference this is going to make, eating real food.
It's going to make a huge difference. It's a step also in the right direction. As an organic farmer, I run a small organic farm. It's very encouraging to me. Most Americans are very trusting of government and systems. They don't understand the inputs into that food system, and getting certain chemicals, herbicides, pesticides out of our foods, getting back to the basics of health instead of synthetic processing is going to make a big impact. It is going to take a couple years until we see it, yes, but the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and this is a big step. And this again goes back to transparency and allowing the American consumer to understand how perverted the system has been for decades. So are we going to see an overnight change? Most likely not. But in a couple of years, the consciousness of the individual knowing that the most important medicine is what they have at the tip of their fork or their spoon, I think is going to become part of the daily zeitgeist. And, you know, perhaps we put a sticker of Kennedy on the inside of our fridge to remind us to eat healthy or something like that in a joking manner. But no, I think it's a wonderful step in the right direction. But it starts with each individual taking personal responsibility and going forward with these good guidelines.
Okay, I would want that sticker on my fridge. I don't know about you guys. But let's go on to another topic, Jeffrey. So you're aware of this. They ended HHS-funded research that used human fetal tissue from elective abortions. Your thoughts on that? Is this important?
The research end of NIH and HHS has been completely out of control for so many years. It's just been this laissez-faire system where you can do whatever you want to whomever you want, and this has led to, yes, fetal tissue and mercury in vaccines, and gain-of-function research unleashing dangerous pathogens on the world. So finally, we're getting some standards, some professional standards here that. Particularly on this fetal tissue issue, it's deeply offensive to many people's moral sensibilities that this has been going on. So we've still here again. We've got a long way to go. These are, we need to understand these are huge systems with long legacies that go way back, and there's never been any real accountability, and we've got a handful of people and their staff trying to turn around this ship and turn it in a more rational, scientific, and humane direction. And I have to say, after just 1 year, they've made probably more progress than any other administration ever has. It's not enough. Many of us are still frustrated that we've got such a long way to go, but at least they're headed in the right direction. I think this is very good.
Okay, Dr. Cole, what do you think about this issue?
Again, I agree with Jeffrey. It speaks to the moral sensibility of probably over half the nation. And when we do put things in our body, we want to know those things are pure, haven't been adulterated, and haven't come to us for benefit from the harm of others. So from a Hippocratic point of view, to first do no harm, many of these research protocols have depended on harm. Newborn or a harm to early life. And so I think people, with technology, with AI, with other cell culture abilities, we don't have to use fetal tissue in research. There's so many other ways to get to the same conclusions without using something that's going to be morally offensive to many. So I think it's a great step in the right direction. Again, it needs to be codified over time.
Okay, well, let's leave it there today. Thank you both for commenting on the issues today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.